Hello and welcome to the first Scoutcast of the 2019-2020 season. My name is Joe.
My name's Az.
My name's Luke. And my name's Granville.
Welcome, welcome
dramatic.
everyone, and a special welcome to Granville in what is the Scoutcast. Okay, let's see which episode number. Episode 296. It's a very special milestone, as you may be able to hear. It's a very special milestone because we've just beaten Last of the Summer Wine. That's right. Last of the Summer Wine, the TV series, ran from 1973 to 2010. And it ran for 295 episodes. So the Scoutcast has lasted longer. And Granville, you were there at the very beginning. So Granville, tell us about when you started on the Scoutcast. What was it like back then? And especially for the benefit of new listeners and viewers, relatively newcomers who haven't been watching or listening since back then. What was it like?
Oh my goodness! It started as sort of like we did a pilot. Myself and Mark, and we were just chatting like two people in a pub. That's all it was. And Mark had already started the site, and we thought that we'd bring it to an audio podcast. We got together in our, I think it was in our studio at work, and recorded it. And there was lots of editing. I have to tell you, neither of us knew what we were doing. And we got out the first one, and it was a roaring success. And we just went on. And I think I was thinking about when did it start? I think it was like 2007, 2008, because it's at least 12 years since we. I've been playing it for 13 years, so it was about 12 years. 'Cause it was about the second or third year after we'd started. I can tell you a few things that we. I can talk about the Scoutcast that we had. So we're on 296, but when we go back. There was just myself and Mark. And game week 37, or episode 37 rather, was the first time that we went in a menage a trois. We got a guy, Andy, if you remember him.
Yeah.
And Andy Goddard, and he did quite a few Scoutcasts with us. He didn't last too long, to be honest with you. I think we just felt it awkward because we had to do it over Skype, and there were lots of technical issues. So we went back.
We don't know anything about those, do we, Joe?
No, we'll just had 10 minutes of technical issues.
We went back to doing the Scoutcast, and I can't recall when we first did our first video cast, but it wasn't too late. It was about episode 150, I think it was. So we'd done, or 140. We'd done plenty until then. I can mention a few of the things that we used to have in our Scoutcast, if you remember them.
Yeah.
So we used to have different sections. One of them was called Granny's Myth, where I'd talk about things that went wrong, which is pretty much something went wrong every single week. Well, I had something to complain about every week. We had another section called All Aboard, which is basically the section on the bandwagons. Who's a bandwagon this week? And we play the All Aboard music.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Brings back memories.
Oh, I remember that.
It should bring it back.
See what I find interesting, because when I first started listening to the Scoutcast, and I remember now it seems there's so much on Twitter, there's so much talk about things like bandwagons and the whole concept of a differential and a bandwagon. It just seems so normal.
It's got its own vocabulary now, hasn't it?
Yeah, but back then I was hearing these phrases like a bandwagon and differential, and I didn't know what you were talking about. And it took me a while, and it was great, and it's just great. Perhaps it was all originated there, but yeah, it was great to back at those times when it was also new. There's so many podcasts now, and that's not to downplay any of them, or the current one that you're on now of the version of the Scoutcast. There's so many, but back then it was also new. There weren't podcasts about fantasy football really. And what's been some of your favourite moments or episodes over that time?
Okay, one of the episodes was we had. It was called, the actual name of the episode was called "Fight on the Beaches." Now, use your imagination. It was basically about Fantasy Island Risk, and I picked Lee Bowyer for my Fantasy Island Risk. And I was a bit worried about him starting to fight with the locals there. Yeah. So I couldn't fight on the beaches. And I remember when I put it up onto because I used to edit them and then do the write-up and then put it up on the site. And about an hour later, Mark called me. He says, "What have you done that for? Why have you called it that?" And I, he's a bit of a worrier now and again, and I managed to placate him, and he left it alone. There was one when Robbie Keane, I don't know if you remember, he scored. There was a game when he scored. I think Spurs won 5-0, and Robbie Keane scored, I think, 2 and an assist or 2 assists, and he didn't get a bonus. And it really miffed me because I had him as my captain, and it was the days of the man in the stand, and I was cursing. I says, why didn't he get? He scored 2 goals and an assist. He was by far the best team, and they give it to somebody else. I was gutted. Rooney's bootlace assist. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one. Yes.
That was when he apparently got a bootlace on. He hit an air shot really, and it come off a lace or something, and we had the cameras on. We're zooming in, and in the end, they gave him the assist, but there was a big discussion about it at the time. Victor Moses, he was one of Mark's favourites. He used to come up all the time in the Scoutcast. Matt Taylor.
Oh yeah, Matty Taylor.
When he's played full. Clint Dempsey. There was a double game week one year, and I didn't have him, and Mark had him. Mark was about 50 points behind me, and Dempsey scored nothing in the first game on the Sunday, and it came to the midweek game, and I remember because I was away in Cornwall, and I was listening to it on the radio, and he scored a double. And in that game week, Mark scored 48 points more than me. He climbed within 2 points of me. It was about 3 or 4 game weeks before the end of the season. I hung on though. Benny Yoon, when I had him one year, and I sold him the week that he got a hat trick.
Yeah,
I was absolutely devastated.
God, the Granny's myth must have been epic, volcanic.
More than myth.
So and there was a famous Scoutcast that we didn't have a studio to do it in, and we did it in one of Mark's rooms in his house, and it was really echoey and it was really awful. It sounded like a dungeon, and I just wonder whether we still got that Scoutcast. But it'd be nice to listen back to it.
Yeah, we'll have to arrange that. We'll have to try and go through the archives and get some of those clips in. I remember I joined before it went on to video, and we had back then. Now, what was it? It was the Full Jonty. Back when I was
Full Jonty. That's when I started listening to it.
And we used to be very kind about people's teams. But I remember one time my dog went missing, and one of the people's Doozra, whose team we were looking at, and Doozra actually found my dog by telling me the exact lane he was in the wilds of Somerset. I don't know how. He doesn't even live in Somerset anymore, but that was amazing. And I also remember a famous Mark wildcard. I know wildcards have been good over the years, haven't they? And they must have been great when you first started with Mark. But I remember particularly one where Mark was very pleased with, and we just tag teamed and went for him.
The Magic Bean, right?
Yeah. And it was, and I remember that was the Magic Beans. Yeah, the Magic Bean episode. Yes, he had too many Magic Beans.
Loftus, you can't run away from Loftus Cheek.
Yes, obviously Mark got his own back by having exceptional finishes. Excellent. Hello.
My daughter's saying hello.
Hello. Hello.
You're live to thousands of people. Yeah, it's funny. We'll show it you one day. You'll be mortified.
It's an epic time when we've beaten Last of the Summer Wine, and it's a very family affair as well. What else have we got coming up on the show apart from marking this great event, beating Last of the Summer Wine?
I know. I mean, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Granville's off. That's where you go. You leave.
We'll be back soon.
Yeah, we'll be back in a bit. So we'll be talking. Well, I mean, mostly we can't really talk about what's been happening because it's the first week of the season. So we're going to be answering community's questions, and there's a couple of questions on the site. I think, Joe, just a few, just a couple of rate my team, nothing major.
No.
But we'll get to answering a few of those. We're going to talk about our own squads for game week 1, so everyone can avoid copying us because we are. I mean, we're not very good.
No, please don't copy me.
Steady.
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't copy Luke. He's the worst of all of us.
Oh,
And then we're going to look at differential and clean sheets. And we've got a slightly different way of doing that this year, so a bit more streamlined and actually hopefully more useful for people listening. But I think we should start with looking at some players.
Yeah, so the first item we've got here is it says mid-priced assets. So Luke, we've got some questions of the community about them. Do you want to go through them?
Yeah, no problem. So we're looking at sort of the 6 million to 7.5 million price bracket, where there's probably it's quite a lot of options there actually. So I'm going to read out some of the questions that kind of address that. Oh, he's popped back in. Granville, you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm at the minute I'm doing a draft, an FPL draft with some of the other lads, and we're right at the dregs at the minute. You know, like the kind of round. There's 7 of us, and we're at round 12. So we've got like Chilwells and Kings and Riches.
They're not dregs, they're top players, mate. What are you talking about? Anyway.
I was just going to say, it just shows how busy we all are. And I just wanted to add in there, it's a good segue there, because David's not here, because he's so busy. This is such a busy week, Fantasy Football Scout. David is just completely knee-deep in content and copy for the site there. So I just thought I'd add that in. And obviously Granville
just sums up the chaos.
Is multitasking here, draft teaming, record-breaking scoutcasting, and now...
Being a dad as well.
It's multitask central. Luke, carry on. Sorry I interrupted.
No problem. So maybe you've got some of these in your drafts, Granville, we'll see. But we're looking at 6 to 7.5 million midfielders. So a pretty good bracket, I think, this season. Quite a lot of players in there.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to read out some of the questions that the community have put to us around that area, then kind of listen to your guys' thoughts. So Stoic has said, who are the best mid-price midfielders and forwards to go for? There's lots of choice. Is it a bit better to spend more than 6.5 or less? So he's talking about team structure there, I guess, and which way we're kind of edging. And we've got over the Mounier, great player he was. To what extent should we avoid or embrace new players? So even to the Premier League, new clubs, stuff like that, promoted people, should we just completely avoid them, or do they count? Are they real boys? Do we include them in our teams? Karen 14, is it worth spending a little more? For example, 8 million and others in that sort of bracket. So to go that little step further on the Sigurðarssons, the Richarlisons, Bilva, there's quite a number of people. Are we going to get more for our money there in the 8 million bracket? And it's worth trying to find that 0.5 million. Addy87 says, are we any clearer on Chelsea's potential gems? I think a lot of their players fit into that bracket of pricing, so they're certainly one for consideration. There's Joe, actually you've put your notes down here, so I'll leave that bit to you. You've actually got something to mention on this, haven't you, quickly before we move on? So
I just want to say one of the reasons it was good that we got lots of questions about these is because there's loads of choice. There's 15 6.5 midfielders. And there's I've got right here 7 6.5 forwards. So there's loads of choice if we get it wrong. And I always say I'm going to get it wrong. So anyway, Luke, carry on.
I mean, you could look at that one or two ways, really, couldn't you? You could say, there's potential to get it wrong, but you can also look at it and think, well, what a great price to have a player at, because at least a few of them are probably going to do well. So it's probably a good price to have in your team at some point. That's the way I probably look at it anyway. So I'll just come back with the main question, which is 6 to 7.5 million. We'll go to you, Az, first of all. Who stands out for you in midfield predominantly in that price bracket?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of good picks. I mean, I think pretty much every draft I've seen has got a Leicester midfielder in it. One of the three of Perez, Maddison, or Tielemans, and they all kind of offer something a bit different, which I think is quite nice. For me, Maddison is my boy. He's the one I'm going to go for every time. I love the fact he's on set pieces. Loved the amount of chances he created last season. I think he's only going to do better this season compared to last season. Ended the season really strongly as well last year. So I think he's really good. But Perez for 6.5. I mean, he's a midfielder playing out of position, really. And I think probably if I was going head over heart, I would probably go for Perez and save the money. So you can do with that what you will, but I do like having the kind of central hub of the team, like a De Bruyne or an Eriksen or a Gross or someone like that. They've always been the kind of midfield players that I like because they're just so involved in everything, which is why I like Maddison. Going down a price bracket, I actually like some of the cheaper options as well. So at 6, I think Trossard is gonna be good, and I know I might be a bit biased, but he's looked really sharp pre-season. He's taken over set piece duties. He's tactically really flexible. So it looks like Potter uses lots of different formations, and I think most of the time we play with 3 at the back and wing backs, and that kind of puts Gross out of the picture a bit because he can't really fit into that because he can only really play as a 10, whereas Trossard can play up front, he can play on the wings. So I think he's going to be the main man for Brighton when there's quite a lot of uncertainty around some of the other positions. And then go down to 5.5. I know your man, Robinson, you're going to talk about him later, but I think 5.5 he's really good. And I also really like Kebelos if he can nail down a starting spot for Arsenal, because if he's brought in to be a Ramsey or an Ozil sort of replacement at 5.5, paying for that Arsenal team, I think he could end up being a really good pick. So there's some from me.
Yeah, I mean, you dip below the 6 million ads, but we'll let you off because they could perform like 6 million mids, right? That's at least what you think.
Yeah, something like that.
We'll see on that one. I think Leicester are going to stand out massively in this bracket, and as you mentioned, I think a lot of people have got them. But are there any other sort of players or teams stand out for you, Jonty, in that area?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's loads of choice. I think there's lots of places to go with this type of price range as well. So, I mean, I'm going to look at, say, strikers, for example. So, 6.5. Now, Troy Deeney, don't laugh. I think he looks good for that price.
Too late.
King as well, Josh King, obviously, and Chris Wood at Burnley as well. He has a great opening fixture, not so good opening 4 or 5. They're all good, but all removable. They're all on penalties, and so every year I've taken a risk with a third striker. I consider them a third striker, and I'm quite happy to ditch them. Quite happy to have them on form or fixture as well. So I'm quite happy to take a punt for them as well. So I consider that kind of a take a risk place. Go safe for everything else, but I don't know. I'd look at the likes of Deeney and Wood and King, and I think they look really dullard to me and safe. But oh well. In midfield, I think there's lots of places to run to if you go for 6 or 6.5. So you've got Perez at 6.5. If it works out for him at Leicester, which we think it will, that's fantastic, great value, and I'm sure his price will shoot up. Trossard at Brighton as well. I like the look of as well, and I do like the look of the number 10 at Chelsea. Whomever it is. I think it could be Ross Barkley, but then you speak to other people and it could be Mason Mount. We don't know at this stage, and it might take a couple of games as well, because Chelsea are involved in the European Super Cup, I believe, and so we're not quite sure. So once they're established, 6 million for the most attacking midfielder in a last season top 4 side of Chelsea, wow, I definitely want that player. But I don't know yet who it is as well.
I can't remember a season where we had so much choice around 6 million.
Yeah,
because they writ off everyone below it pretty much. They literally just grouped every player in this bracket that wasn't a premium. It's mad.
They have. Some are overpriced, aren't they? And some are, like Chelsea, they've just blanketly underpriced all of Chelsea. Just for the sake of it.
They have done, actually.
Yeah, it's just blank.
7.5 is their most, right? Which is Pulisic.
Yeah, and that's fair enough if we don't know who's going to start. But gradually, over the first 3 or 4 game weeks, we're going to know who's going to be first choice. And then suddenly you've got loads of cheap players. And I want to better get on to those players. So that's why I quite favour sort of average 6.5 million players. Because you can move on to Chelsea assets quite quickly then. Yeah, and I just wanted Villa as well. So Grealish, McGinn, I don't know whether they're going to be any good. We don't know. They've just come up to the top flight, could be. Jota as well, he's got potential for Villa there in midfield. Bad first fixture, but then get better. Wesley as well. I'm just reeling off names here. There's so much choice as well. Granville, what do you think of these mid-price chaps?
The Villa ones, definitely. I mean, I've got a Villa one actually in my team at the minute, and that's McGinn. I did have Grealish, but I needed to downgrade him. But I don't think he's much of a downgrade, actually, because McGinn likes to have a shot. The other player I noticed seems to be a bit underpriced is Lanzini, West Ham. And as long as he keeps fit and gets in the team, I mean, that's the difficulty. Yarmolenko as well. These are players who can force their way into those sides. And then the Leicester players as well. I'm not sure about that. I know I've seen Perez in lots and lots of teams, but I'm going to wait and see.
Do you know what? I agree with you there. I agree with you. I don't know. It's a new team, isn't it? I mean, we know he was quite good for Newcastle.
He was all right. He was all right for Newcastle. He wasn't a world beater.
He was 6.5 all right, and that'll do me. But I don't know at Leicester. We don't know, do we? And And
No, and you can go with the tried and trusted players, but then you have to go cheaper elsewhere. I've thrown a couple in. I mean, McGinn, I think, is at 5.5. You can bench him and see how he goes. Grealish is another one. I mean, Grealish is the one who gets involved. You know, he's the well-known player and takes all the set pieces. I think Villa were pretty good with set pieces last season. And also the Norwich players as well. I mean, they've got, is it Vrancic? Is that his name, the midfielder?
Yeah, he takes set pieces, yeah.
So I think, I mean, we always look at the teams who come up and see if there's any value there, but it's difficult to know how well they'll do in this league. But loads and loads of choice. How about the penalty king, Milivojevic? I only did it so I couldn't pronounce it.
Milivojevic. I mean, we've been practicing for 3 years.
Milivojevic, right?
Yeah. Milivojevic. Yeah. I still can't do it, but I think he's being overlooked. And I think this season, above all seasons, I think penalties are going to dominate. The VAR, you saw it at the Women's World Cup and games last year. Penalties are deciding lots and lots of games. Will decide lots of games this season. And I think you need to look through as many penalty takers in your team as you can.
Yeah.
I think I've got 5 in mind, which is pushing it a little bit. But
the issue is Palace, because I was in my league prediction table. I've got them I haven't got them rock bottom. I've got them relegated. So rock bottom down the end of the table. They haven't bought anyone.
You're not biased at all, are you?
No.
It was when I saw that they signed Ayew up front. And I thought that was end of days for Palace. But
I mean, Zaha, if the Zaha thing has a happy conclusion for them, then they have a chance. But if his head's been turned and he's desperate to leave and he sulks all season, there's little quality in that team really.
They survived last season. I mean, they didn't just survive. I think they were pretty comfortable. To be fair, I think they're a good side. It's not all, you don't have to buy players. Look at Spurs last season; they didn't buy anyone. And they had another great season. So
you do have to buy when you've got Benteke and Townsend and Max Meyer and
as well.
Those centre backs.
I hold my hands up, and you got me there. But
and you've lost losing Wan-Bissaka, I think, is really going to hurt them because he saved them countless times. I think last season they haven't replaced him. I don't know who they're going to play at left back.
Right back, you mean?
Right back.
It's going to be Ward or Kelly, isn't it?
I mean, that is not good.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Hodgson going by Christmas. To be honest with you, I don't think they'll do much. But I suppose we could be proved wrong. It's happened in the past. Hodgson has pulled out some decent efforts, saved some teams. So we'll see, I guess. But yeah, it's just their front line is just awful, and I just, but unless Benteke can suddenly morph into his Villa version, then I think they're really going to struggle for goals, and it is going to come down to Milivojevic, or however you say his name, scoring 30 goals from VAR, I think, which...
I mean, he got 12 penalties, 12. He got 12 goals last season. I don't know how many of those are penalties. I imagine most of them. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think he scored around the same number last season. It wasn't far off of it anyway, so...
But if they lose Zaha, then that number's going to...
I don't want to poo-poo it, but he's coming nowhere near my team anyway. For me, in the 7.5 million, I mean, the standout pick is just Ryan Fraser. I think it's just probably head and shoulders above most others. I think he stands out just because... his last season was incredible. More creative stats than Eden Hazard's. He's obviously got 2 great games to open. The only question mark for me would be, can he repeat that again? Because it was almost off the charts. But an attacking team like him and like Bournemouth, and obviously being on set pieces helps. I certainly think he is a standout.
You and Granny not feeling Martial then?
No.
I think you look at Bournemouth signed anybody. Not anybody.
Do you know what, Bournemouth?
They signed Wilson today.
Just today. Really annoyingly, they just signed Wilson, but Harry Wilson. So when it says Wilson scores and we get really happy,
carnage,
and then we're just going to look really sad because it's just some bloke called Harry and not Callum. But that's really annoying. Hopefully they'll call him something else.
Yeah, maybe. Well, you just have to call him Harry in the community because we ain't gonna be able to tell the difference, are we? Harry and Callum. So I think Fraser's pretty much the standout pick there. I mean, I don't want to go too much into any of the ones you guys have picked out. Perez, he's another one I'd definitely vouch for in that price bracket. I think he's going to do wonders. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's just so many picks that could do well in that bracket.
So this is something I'm sure we're going to discuss a bit later about looking at Wilson and Fraser. So obviously they do well. They assist each other. quite nicely. But however, if Bournemouth don't do well, don't score, or it's Josh King is the one that scores with a penalty, then suddenly you've got quite a bit of your budget tied up. And it's what's put me off having Wilson and Fraser. And at the moment, I favour Wilson, but that's not to deny Fraser's not wonderful. So what do you think it's viable to have Fraser and Wilson, Luke, or do you favour one of them?
I certainly think it's viable because their games are that good where, and they're still, obviously, they're just really good players, they seem to be. So I'd be willing to back it. But then at the same time, me personally, I question whether Bournemouth can consistently do it. So I would be looking at one max, really. But I can easily see the argument for two. And have toyed with it in a few drafts. To be honest, I've toyed with everything in a draft by now. The game's been open so long. I've probably had every player in the game in my team.
I've tinkered so much. Even I appeared in one of my teams at some point, and obviously, draft got myself out.
That's a definite no for me. I'm not a 2.5 defender, whatever you think. No, I'm not having you.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the only other one that really stands out to me in that bracket, even despite having Europa, is Jota. I just think Jota at 6.5 million could easily outperform that. Despite the Europa, I just think he's a great player. So to start with him, maybe not, because we just want to see how much that affects them. But if it doesn't really seem to affect them that much, I think he'll easily score well.
I think him and Jimenez, I was really surprised with how cheap they were. I thought Jimenez would be 8.5, and I thought Jota would be 7.5. So I think there's been a lot of prices which I've been like, whoa, that's high. But for those two wall strikers, I think they're low. I think they've definitely come into the reckoning at some point.
It's funny this year, Wolves, in some areas they've really overpriced them. Matt Doherty at the back, 6 million suddenly for him. No, he's just gone then from the game. And then suddenly you got Jota at 6.5. He's really good value as well. But it's those opening fixtures that put me off Wolves. So you've got Leicester, Manchester United, Burnley and Everton, and yes, they can do well, but they've also got this season Europa to deal with as well, and they've got a few new players, a sprinkling of new players to bed in. We don't know which is going to be favoured in which competition just as yet, so lots of unknowns there. Let's move on. It's for a team to discuss, or is it a team? But anyway, explain more.
Well, very cheekily, we're not going to look at. Well, we are going to look at team, but we're going to look at a union. We're going to look at the goalkeepers union, which I think, Joe, is quite a loose link into this next segment. But I mean, it's an interesting question because I mean, there's lots of different strategies that people are using with goalkeepers. You either go for the premium and a 4.0, so it's probably Edison, maybe Allison, and then just a 4 million, or you do a rotation sort of pairing, which works really well for some people. For other people, it's just a complete disaster. You get it wrong every week, and you end up with points on your bench. Or you just do what I do every year and just get the cheapest goalkeeper you can get and just hope he gets some save points and a lucky penalty save. So we can see what you guys are all doing. I've got Pope as my 4.5 and then Button as my non-playing other player. I think there's actually some really good options in the 4.5 bracket. I like Henderson of Sheffield United. They're the best defensive record in Championship last season. He could be like a kind of Etheridge who actually keeps some clean sheets. I really like Pope. I really like Heaton as well, who's at Villa, and to a lesser extent Ryan as well. He's probably my fourth pick out of those. But to me, Pope, if Burnley kind of got back to being Burnley towards the end of last season, started grinding out the wins, Heaton came back into the team and they started getting some clean sheets again. And what we've always found with Burnley in previous years is the goalkeepers do really well on the bonus because they do a lot of passing or like a lot of throwing it to the centre-backs who don't pass it round very much themselves. So Pope and Heaton used to get their pass completion up quite a lot, which really helped with the bonus. So that's why I've always liked a Burnley goalkeeper. I've always tried to get one in if I could afford it. I think they were 5 million last season, so they were overpriced. But this season at 4.5, I think Pope's the one to go for. What do you think, Granville? Let's go to you next.
I've gone. I thought this would be obvious. I've gone for the Brighton keepers because you said you had Button. You might as well get Ryan as well at 4.5, and then not have to think about the keeper. I like to do that because I just hate my keepers. I just hate thinking about rotating because quite often you just play the wrong one.
There's no Burnley keeper at 4, so we'd have to. I think the only combination you can do is the Brighton reserve and main keeper. But
and then you could always get a Burnley defender if you were that sure that Burnley are going to be tight.
But how often really does a goalkeeper? I mean, Pope is probably the most injury prone of all the goalkeepers, to be fair. But realistically, you're not expecting a goalkeeper to get injured. You've got to be pretty unlucky, I think.
You do have to be unlucky, but I mean that's why I've just gone for both of them. I don't really want to spend any more than 9 is the most I'd ever want to spend on 2 keepers, but you can get them from 8.5, then spend 0.5 on another defender if you've got that combination. But if you don't fancy Brighton keepers, then fair enough. Don't go for them. Has anybody gone for any of the more expensive keepers, Edison or Alisson? Because they brought in so many. I mean, you look at the points last season: 176 and 169. That's pretty extraordinary. That's pretty high for keepers, and they're only actually 6 million, which isn't a lot when you consider how much your premium defenders are. I think.
I can certainly see the argument with Edison because you don't know who the nailed-on Man City defender is, and then, Laporte's 6.5, so he's 0.5 more, isn't he? So then it's like you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself over 20 clean sheets by doing that move. But
and also with the Liverpool players, are all the ones that you want are all 6.5 or 7.
7 but they come with other benefits.
And of course they do. But I'm just saying that you probably do want a Liverpool defender, which. And some people have gone for 2, but I would consider getting Alisson as your second Liverpool player because of the.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't looked at that personally, but I just think there's so many good Liverpool players I want. I don't know whether I could touch Alisson, but I can see the rationale again. Like you say, if you want to cover double Liverpool defence, for example, he's a cheaper route than the nailed-on pick. So yeah, I can see that argument. But I think also last season Fabianski was within like 20 or 30 points of those keepers. So. They can do it. It's obviously just finding the right one, and then that 1.5 million for like 30 points. If someone else is going to match him, that's a lot of money to spend on 30 points. So I actually a fan of nearly every 4.5 keeper. I think Gunn could do all right. I don't think you can go wrong. I think you literally pick one, whoever you want, and I'll be surprised if there's much difference between them come the end of the season. I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, I've personally gone for Henderson just because I think Sheffield United look to be pretty tight in the Championship. They've got 3 good games to start the season. He's obviously a good keeper because Man United have played. We don't buy rubbish players, Man United. All our players are great. So he's
who's your spare keeper then?
It's just a throwaway. I don't, if I get unlucky, I get unlucky. But
it's gonna be Button, isn't it? We're all gonna have Button.
Nah, have you gone?
I've just some mug. I can't even remember who it is. McGovern or someone like that. I think it might be. I can't remember who it is now. But
well, I hope you all get injured keeper. I don't wish an injury on any goalkeeper, but I just because of this Scoutcast, I do hope that maybe they get a little. I don't know.
To be honest, if that will happen to me, Granville, probably. It was the last season.
No, I remember that.
And then you'll have to spend your transfer. So
I remember that. I think it was Hull where that happened, where the goalkeeper got injured, so the backup came in. The backup got injured. So even if you went for this king and air tactic with Ryan and Button, even that proved unlucky, and that can happen as well. But yeah, I'm
Who have you got, Joe?
I'm with Granville on this one. I want to spend as least as I can. I want to get as many points as I can, and I like Brighton's fixtures early on for clean sheets. A lot of people saying they don't keep clean sheets. They've got a new manager. They've got a new system now. They're playing three at the back, sometimes which merges into a 5 at the back sometimes. We don't know. I mean, so it's impossible to say whether they're good or bad at the moment because we don't know. So it'd be very wrong to say that. But I like that tactic. 8.5. If Ryan's injured, Button will come in. Or we could get unlucky like those Hull keeper situation, but hopefully that won't happen. So my preference would be 2 4.5 goalkeepers. I do like to have a backup. If I had the money, I would love to have 2.45, but I think 8.5 is too good to turn down. And I would go for Pope and Ryan. I'm not too interested in the rotation. I'm more interested in having a good backup because often a player that's in a team that's poor and they're playing a top side, they can really rack up the saves as well. Fabianski, I remember with Swansea, I seem to remember a game he played against Spurs where they conceded, but I think he got maybe 3 to 4 actual points. It was somewhere around 9 to 12 save points that match. That's absolutely huge. That's what you can get for them. That's really, I find that quite exciting anyway. So one of the reasons I mention Pope and Ryan is because I like teams. So I've done a bit of research for this one. I like teams where they're a poor team, but what they do is they reduce the number of shots the opponents have from outside the box, and these are in theory easier for goalkeepers to save because they're from longer range. They've got more time to see those shots coming, and the teams that conceded the most shots from distance last season are, you guessed it, it's Burnley and Brighton. So this is why ideally I would go for Pope and Ryan, but at the moment I've got 8.5, so I'll just have Ryan. And the season before it was Brighton and, drumroll, it was Burnley and also Everton as well. So over the last 2 seasons, Brighton and Burnley have been in the top 2 or the top 3 sides for restricting teams. They conceded quite a few in the box as well, but it's those saves from outside of the box. That's what I'm looking for in goalkeepers, and that's why I really like these 4. As Luke was saying, you can't really go wrong, I think, with these 4.5. People have mentioned Henderson as well. We don't know, unknown quantity at the moment in the top flight, but I'm quite happy to go for him. Gunn as well. If Southampton's fixtures were a little better, I might go for him instead of Ryan, but Brighton have got the fixtures, why not? 8.5, king and heir, and I'm in agreement with Granville here.
We'll see. Battle of the budget keepers. I'll just pay if I have to transfer Pope out. I'll just take the 4 points, even if it costs me it. Like I think in the long run, Pope is going to get more than 4 points than Ryan.
I think Pope long term. I'd go Pope all day. It's just their games. I think maybe you start with Heaton or Henderson for the slightly better games, and then if Pope's just doing what he normally does, I think I'll bring him in on wildcard and he'll be for the rest of the season. It's only his initial games put me off a bit, and the fact that he has had this injury doubt even at the very beginning of the season again. So it just part of me worries and thinks, is Pope fully back fit? You know, they just bought another goalkeeper as well. I think, why is that? And they've got Joe Hart sat there. I'm just like,
yeah, that is the worry with him.
Yeah,
is the fitness.
I can afford to wait and see on him.
So plenty of question marks over Pope then, and you've got Button as your spare keeper. I think again,
the mind games.
That's why,
the mind games already.
Yeah, so I agree with this mind gaming, because if I had Pope, I'd want a backup. I wouldn't want Button as my backup.
Yeah, you wouldn't, would you?
Because that's no goalkeeper potentially, especially because he's got a bad injury record at the moment. So I'd if he's fit, go for Pope. Backup is Ryan. Nice.
I haven't got the 0.5 to get a backup. I need the money.
He's the best pick long term. Don't worry.
Yeah, he is. I'm not worried about him. Pope stays. If I have to transfer him out, I'll transfer him out. You know.
Yeah, but he can't.
You can find a 0.5 somewhere.
Money's nothing at this stage.
He can't play with broken legs, or if he's in traction in hospital. He just can't get any points that way.
I'll tell you what I won't do, and that's do what you did last season and get Joe Hart in.
I know.
I won't stoop that low.
And do you know what? And I discovered how wonderful Heaton was. So Heaton is another example of a potential gem this season for Villa. We did some stats roundup about Christmas time when it was when Heaton replaced Hart. And the figures was quite startling about how poor Joe Hart was and the whole Burnley defence and how wonderful they were when Heaton came in. So perhaps Heaton could be doing the same for Villa as well. A bit like Tyrone Mings did for them last season. Who knows? Anyone want to mention anything else about goalkeepers, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
I think we've done all we can.
Okay, well, the talking point here, and this is something people are asking, it's time to finally reveal our teams and captains for game week 1. Will they be Dullard, will they be Maverick, or will they be balanced? Each of you will take us through your team with a brief reason why. We might probably be very brief about the likes of Salah and Sterling because they're simply good. But hopefully this will cover a lot of the community's other questions around things like the best Man City options, best bench players to have, the top premiums to target. So to kick off, Granville, let's take us through your team then.
Right. Have you got the team up?
Yeah, got the team up on the screen.
All right, excellent. Right, okay. Well, where can I start? Yeah, I'm not going to mention the 2 biggies because everyone's got them. I've got in my midfield. I've got Lucas Moura. Now it's. I think he's going to start. He's definitely going to start the season. He had a great end to last season. Scored in the scored a hat trick in against Ajax. Is it? He's just he just had an incredible end to the season, and I think he's going to bring that into this season as well. So I do fancy him. There are issues about their lineup, but I think he'll definitely be starting. Up front, I've gone for Jamie Vardy, and this is really down to the penalties. I think Leicester are going to be an attacking team. They do get penalties. Jamie Vardy is a good penalty taker. I quite fancy him, and it's about balance, isn't it? Because I can't afford anyone else because I've spent my money elsewhere. My cheapo is up in the air at the minute because I haven't decided, because I did have Locadia in there, and I have doubts whether he's certainly not going to start up front, is he? He's going to start on the wing now.
Yeah.
So I have my doubts, and I need Jota. Jota was the first person on my team, so he's staying. But I've been switching between Locadia, Pucky, and Wesley, and it'll be one of those. I would have thought to fill in that spot. Midfield, well, I've gone, and it's quite controversial. I have gone for Millie because I just think that maybe I'm being obsessed with his penalties, but I do think that, I mean, the last 2 years he's scored, what was it, 12 and then 10 the season before? It's ridiculous for a central midfielder, and I think at 7 million he's not. I don't think he's overpriced. There's a lot of choice, obviously, at that price, but I just fancy him. But that could change, of course, because I haven't finished this. McGinn he's sort of a wild card, and so are quite a few of these players who come in from the Championship. That's up in the air too. At the back, I did have Alexander-Arnold. I think there are doubts about him because he didn't have a good charity Community Shield game, and he could be rotated a little bit with Gomez. I put Matt Ritchie in as well as a player who is always on set pieces, and everyone else is a filler. I guess Lundstrom, Firmino, and Balbuena.
You sound so sad talking about your own team, Granville. You can still change it. It's not all over.
Well, how many yours are set in stone? I can't. I've been shifting these about the last couple of nights, and I can't really find much to really get me excited about with the players that I don't, that are up in the air.
There's no stone left. I've moved around so much, I've smashed it to pieces. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
The thing is, I like this team, Granville, and because I agree with one of the comments we've got on the live stream from Vasilas98, and he simply says old school team. And I think it is an old school team because it's got balance there. It's got a bench that you can manoeuvre around, and it's got, as you said, it's got form players or form at the end of last year or pre-season, but with penalties as well. So you've gone for that emphasis on penalties, and it's got the spine. I was talking on another podcast today about getting a spine to a team, and I think that spine is just, at the very basics, should be Sterling, Salah, and a Liverpool defender, and sort of the rest is trimmings. And this is one where it's got a lot of balance.
Joe, that team hasn't got a spine.
So Sterling and Salah and a Liverpool defender is not a spine. Well, I call that spine.
Well, yeah, but Kika, Firmino, and Ritchie.
I know, but this often happens with Rate My Teams. People home in on something like, oh, what, you got Lundstrom in there, and as if that's like the main attraction. And then they just
I'm not worried
skirt
about
over
Lundstrom.
these really good players.
He's worried about Kika, Firmino, and Ritchie.
I'm worried about Kiko, Firmino, and Ritchie, and
it doesn't matter.
Milivojevic and McGinn and Pukki.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people have gone the 5.5. They've gone for Zinchenko. Now, the problem with that is that you can't be sure who's going to play. I mean, he may start, but I think he's definitely going to be rotated. And so I'm just looking, again, for players who I think will start.
I think I'd rather have a bench Zinchenko than Ritchie.
Well, the thing is, Ritchie the game.
Well, the thing is, Ritchie is out of position. And I just see it at 5.5. Well, I think that it is quite cheap, actually, for an out of position defender, 5.5. I don't think that Zinchenko. I mean, is Zinchenko that attacking? Not really. You're getting him really for the clean sheets. And I think that City, and it's shown this the last few years, is that they don't always start off seasons with clean sheets. So we'll see. I want to see your team, Az, because I want to rip it apart.
I know, bit of pressure now.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's go straight into Az's team now then. So I just want just sum up your team, Granville. Old school. I like it. You've gone for people who start, who are nailed on and take penalties, and you've also got, even though Az has denied this is a spine, and that Sterling and Salah, you just avoided them and just homing on Firmino. But yeah, they're the ones there. So
it's the kind of team that could get 10 points or could get like 90.
Yeah.
Listen, anything can be changed. This is a start. It's always so hard start the first game week because it is a little bit of a lottery. You don't know how the team's going to start out, how they're going to play. It's never that easy, and that's why people end up playing their wild cards in game week 3.
Okay, Az, let's have a look at yours. Let's see if you're going to be wildcarding in game week 3 or just happily carrying on till Christmas. Here's your team. Do you want to take us through it then?
Not really. I'm scared now. I mean, I've gone a little bit less crazy than Granville, I think. I mean, I think I've gone for 3 kind of real differential players, and I think that's probably enough. So everyone else in the team, I think, is sort of a relatively safe pick. And then Wesley, Trossard and Stevens are my kind of sort of more maverick ones. So I'll talk through those. I mean, Wesley isn't ideal, I'm not going to lie. But I need a 6 million striker, and it's kind of between him and Che Adams. I just can't find 0.5. Well, I might have a way of finding 0.5. I'll tell you in a sec. But I think, apart from the Spurs game, Villa do have some really good fixtures coming up. And he's had a good pre-season. I mean, they've got Bournemouth at home, Everton at home, Palace away, and West Ham at home. So that's four good games for Wesley. So you've got to think he's going to score a couple of goals in those games, hopefully. So I like a promoted striker, so we're going with him. Trossard. Now, I think Brighton, we've made a lot of signings this season, and I like what Potter's doing with the team. He's gone for this kind of flexible formation. I think it means, as I said earlier, Gross is going to be out. Trossard's probably, I think, going to be the main man, taking set pieces. Sometimes could even drift into the centre forward role. So I like him. Now, Stevens. And I've got to actually give a shout out to FPL Blade on Twitter, because I hadn't really thought about Sheffield United too much. And then he told me they play with wing backs. I love wing backs. Wing backs are brilliant, and his stats are fantastic. And Scout did an article on Sheffield United's defenders recently, and he's a very attacking wing back. He's the most expensive defender of all the promoted sides, but it seems justified because of how attacking he is. But I also learned, and this is how I might save my 0.5, is that apparently Sheffield United have 3 centre-backs, and 2 of them overlap with the wing-backs. So they bomb forwards overlapping. And so I'm thinking maybe instead of going for Stevens, I'd go for O'Connell, who is one of those sort of marauding centre-backs. And the thought of seeing a centre-back just charge down the pitch and smash a goal in is really appealing. So
it's not going to happen.
It's also probably not going to happen. But yeah, they're mine. I mean, just some other. I'll quickly do some others. Wilson, I think, is worth the money over King, which is why I've got him. I love Maddison. De Bruyne's a 200-point midfielder if he stays fit, and I'm not going to captain him, so he can just trickle in the points. Dean, love Everton's fixtures, taking set plays. Alexander-Arnold taking set plays, playing for Liverpool. That's it. That's my team. Go on, Gran. Tear it apart.
Right, for a start, you can get Ryan and Button. Why do you need Montoya? You can get Taylor or someone. He'll give you the same points. And then you've got the surety of your Brighton keeper, having a keeper.
I haven't got Montoya anymore.
Yeah, sorry, Granville. Montoya was ditched earlier today by Az. He listened to you in advance.
Yeah, Montoya went for Stevens, basically.
Okay, right, I got that. Now, you say that De Bruyne is going to get 200 points, did you say?
Yeah.
200 points, okay. Okay, he has achieved 209 points in 2017, 2018. So if he stays fit, there's a possibility. But he'd have to play every game. I think.
Yeah.
I think the difficulty with City is the points get shared around. Other than Sterling, who's guaranteed points every game, I would have thought. There's so much rotation there, and there's so many players who can play all these different positions. And I think De Bruyne is obviously a class player, but I don't think he's going to be. Do you think he's going to be playing every game?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I think so. And I mean, what I like about De Bruyne is that there's quite a few players around the 9 million mark that you'd probably find it quite hard to get if you didn't have someone like him in. So if Pepe starts going mad for Arsenal, like it's quite an easy switch to him. If Eriksen, stays at Spurs or moves to United, you want to move to him. Like it gives you a lot of flexibility having him rather than just spreading all the money over my team. And I like the idea of having 2 City attackers.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with her. Having 2 City attackers is a good thing, and I couldn't do it. I'd have had to go for Bernardo Silva, I think, because that's all I could afford, and I'm just not sure about him in an FPL. Or initially Aguero up front. And also he's on the penalties as well. But I think it is a balancing trick. I mean, I think you're. I actually think that you're overestimating how many points De Bruyne is going to get, but it can always be changed. What else have you got? Because I haven't got your team in front of me now.
I've got Pope in goal. We've done him. I've got Dean, Alexander-Arnold, and Stevens.
So you've gone for the very expensive Liverpool defenders. So you've got Robertson and Van Dijk. Do you think how long?
No. I've just got Alexander-Arnold.
Okay, right. Okay, so this team is like completely off.
Yeah. That was a whole day ago.
Oh my goodness! I mean that is proper turnaround. You've changed your whole back line.
Well, do you know what? The reason why I changed, and it's going to sound ridiculous, was because the draft you're seeing has probably got Kebelos in it.
Yes, it has.
Yeah,
yes.
And when I heard he was injured, it meant I had to get rid of him. So I wanted to upgrade him to Trossard, which means I had to find 0.5, which means I had to change my entire team to get that.
It sounds like it did you a favour.
Yeah, I think it probably did. Yeah,
I think just because the surety starts. Can you put Jonty? Can you put Az's team up on the screen?
Yeah, it's on the screen now.
Oh, is it on? Okay.
Yeah, the whole world is looking at it. Well, a few thousand people.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, this will help for the benefits of those on the podcast as well. So
I guess Digny's solid, Maddison's solid, but Maddison is your favourite player, isn't he?
He is my favourite player.
Yeah, Wilson's solid, Wesley unknown.
And Wesley is the weak link. I'm not gonna lie. Every team needs a weak link though.
Well, you've got Wickham as well. Is that not a weak link?
He's not starting.
You talk about weak links and you don't mention Wickham.
I think he might play a bit because if they've only got.
Well, he's going to have to look at that bench as.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're not wrong. I've got Boris Johnson in defence now.
Yeah.
Nice.
or Ben Johnson. Because I mean they've got Fredericks, haven't they? So I think in terms of the 4 million defenders, I actually think old Boris might come good in the end. Because I think he's young. He's just signed his first professional contract with them. They're really highly touting him, and I don't know if Fredericks was injured last year, but they played Zabaleta over him, didn't they?
Yeah, Fredericks has been injured.
No, Fredericks came in at the end of the season.
Yeah.
He's going to start.
He's been injured in pre-season, which is why Johnson's been racking up those minutes there. But unlike Boris Johnson, he's in favour of the backstop, and that backstop is the bench basically. So
with Wickham, I thought you didn't fancy Palace this season.
I don't, but
oh no, but you've got their main striker in.
Well, it's Wickham or Greenwood.
I think I'd probably go Greenwood actually.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really like either.
I just think, just before we come to Luke's team, I just wanted to say, so just quickly round up, because it's quite confusing for those listening on the podcast, but basically you've gone for Pope and Button, and you've got Alexander-Arnold, Luca Dean, Stevens, you've got Sterling, Maddison, De Bruyne, Salah, and Trossard, and Wilson and Wesley up top, and then your bench there is Button there, and Wickham, Lundstrom, and Johnson. You've basically got 3 players on your bench. you've got 4 players, including Button, who are never going to play. So that's my opinion of it. You've gone benchless.
Wildcard game week 3.
And you will be wildcarding in game week 3.
If I drop Stevens to O'Connell, then I could strengthen the bench.
So on the live stream, DJ Newton said that Az has been making poetry about Sheffield there, and I think this is a limerick with a game week 3 wildcard conclusion at the end of it and the final line. So that's my opinion on that. Because you've got no bench there. So Luke, let's have a look at your team then.
Right.
Take us through it.
This is easily the best team of the lot. I'm sorry, guys, but it's also the dullest team of the lot. Like, I don't know if it's up on the screen right now, but
it is.
It's literally Twitter template, I think. I mean, the keepers I've already mentioned, 4.5. I've had Heaton in there. I've had Pope in there. I've just gone for Henderson for now. I don't think it'll be much different. It's actually changed a little bit since then. So I've decided to be a little bit more maverick, and I've got Trent Alexander instead of Robertson because I still think he's going to be the better pick overall. And obviously today I've heard about Man City signing a right back. So Walker's probably going to have to be looked at now. So I may put him down to Zinchenko, or I might go for Aspilicueta or someone. But aside from that, I think the team's pretty much template. And my only sort of rogue pick is Che Adams because I need a 6 million striker. So I just fancy Ralph Hasenhüttl's attack. So I prefer him than the Aston Villa picks. But I could, of course, put Walker down to Zinchenko for 5.5 and then get myself 0.5 and bring in someone like Wood or Jota or whoever I prefer in the 6.5 bracket. We've discussed there's so many options there. But apart from that, I think it's probably the most template team going.
I'm so disappointed in you, Luke.
So I'm just going to read it all out, and then we'll come to a few things there, Luke. Just read out in full, just for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. Got Henderson, McGovern, who? Luca Dean, Walker, Robertson, and Van Dijk. That's a really expensive back line. You've essentially gone for a 4-4-2. You've got Perez, Sterling, De Bruyne, and Salah. Can't argue with that midfield. Adams and King, very light up top. And then on your bench, obviously we mentioned McGovern with Who next to him, Greenwood, Dendoncker and Lundstram as well. Anything else you want to add about that team? I see you've gone big at the back, and you're quite happy with double Liverpool defence as well. That seems to be the main what's happening there. And also you've decided, I think, that if you're going to get Kane and Aguero at any point, you're either not going to get them, or it's going to be quite difficult to get them. But you're quite happy with De Bruyne there. Have you got your eye as well on kind of looking at other expensive midfielders like likes of Son, perhaps?
Yeah, to be honest, De Bruyne's only in there because, I think he's going to also be great. But it's also Son at 9.5 that I'm really eyeing up, and he comes back in game week 3. So I think I've got a chance to look at Spurs for a couple of games and then either jump straight on it. But there's also Simone Pep, who I think could be good for Arsenal. So De Bruyne's not absolutely nailed in my team, but I just think there's a lot of buzz around him at the moment, and I like to have someone at that price, so it's an easy one swap. So I think that he will probably become Son. That's at least in my mind at now. That's obviously open to change. And to be honest, if Kane and Aubameyang, I really want Aubameyang. He's the player I really want to fit in here. But the only way I could really do it is get rid of De Bruyne down to like a 5 or a 5.5 midfielder, which I have thought about. Then switch King to Aubameyang. So that if I go my slightly more maverick version, which I'm always likely to do because I'm so bored by my team, is to switch De Bruyne to Callum Robinson, switch King to Aubameyang, and then change Walker to Zinchenko. And I think that just about makes it in budget, if I remember rightly. I've had so much tinkering now, I could be 0.5 out or something. But that is another version that I've looked at. But then obviously my structure completely changes. So I just think 4-4-2 is the most solid structure to start the season. And I owe it to myself to actually have a half decent rank this season. I was awful last time trying to be too maverick. And I've got so many versions of teams with maverickness in there. And I just think stick with the tried and tested for now. And we'll see if I've managed to stay awake throughout the season.
But the problem with you last season was you didn't back yourself. You had all the right ideas. You said all the like you called Mane over Salah so early, like saying you'd match him for points. And then it's just a shame you didn't.
Yeah, well, he's still in my. I said to you before, as I'm really happy he's out game one because I'd be so tempted to do that again. Because Mane at home, actually, I think he's nearly doubled Salah's points per game in home games anyway. So I think if I'm going to be captaining Sterling a lot, which I really probably am going to because I think he might be the top scorer, then why would I not have Mane's home games to captain instead of Salah's? Because he does better at home. And obviously I'll give myself $1 million. But the fact that he's not starting game week 1 just means that I'll work that out later. If it seems to be that case again, if Mane hasn't just pulled out a freak season and he starts to score really well at home and even better than Salah at home, then I'm not opposed to just swapping him out, getting the million, and then looking at someone like Haller, who I think from West Ham, I actually like his price, and I think that he could be a good shout. So I don't know how long I'll trust King long term. So that's also in my mind. I've literally thought of everything. I've had about 4 weeks sitting on a sun lounger just looking at my team non-stop. So I've got everything covered, don't worry, it's all under control. It's fine.
How does Wilson, the new Bournemouth signing, how does he affect King?
Well, I think he's going to be more right wing side.
He's been brought in as cover for Brooks more.
Okay. Oh, so he's not a striker then.
Well, he's a modern forward, so can play in a variety of positions. But
Trossard-esque.
Yes, he hasn't been brought in. He's not going to affect Wilson and King.
Come on, let's go with the established stars.
There's a question I wanted to ask Granville, actually. So looking at Luke's team, he is the only one amongst us who's gone for 4 at the back. There's been a lot of talk on Fantasy Football Scout and Twitter about going 5 at the back even, but definitely going for these expensive goalkeepers, expensive defenders and goalkeepers, and doubling up on teams like Liverpool. What do you think of that, Granville?
Well, I think my experience of expensive defenders is a bad one because, especially at the start of the season, I remember two seasons. One season starting with Alonso and another season starting with Baines, and they're both 7 million. In fact, Ivanovic as well. I think they were all 7 million. And eventually, I think Alonso was the most successful of them, but I still got rid of him after, say, 15 weeks. I think it's always difficult. They're obviously prized because they did so well last season, and maybe the game has changed, and because these Liverpool defenders have scored so highly that they'll keep their value. But I do think, looking at Luke's back line, I think there's a little bit too much spent there. And I can see within the first couple of weeks, you're going to be dropping one of those to bolster your front line. Because I don't think it's sustainable, that front line.
Boards are old news. They're old news. They don't do anything anymore. Didn't you get the memo? They're rubbish now.
Who wrote that memo?
Last season wrote that memo. Did you watch it?
Well, look at that. Even when you look at the scoring of this forwards, take away the couple of Liverpool defenders, the forwards are still up there. They are more expensive, mind you, but I think that you will be getting rid of one of those Liverpool defenders, I would have thought, and probably Digne.
Listen, I've wildcarded after game week 1 before, so I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen, Granville. You probably...
I'm just saying, out of experience, and maybe the game's changed now, I don't know, but out of experience, spending that much on the defence in game week 1 is a mistake.
It doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice, but hey, it just seems to be the wave at the moment, so I'm going to ride it and play safe, which I'm completely comfortable with.
I'm sure you are. We'll see how comfortable you are when you're at the bottom of the contributors league.
I'm used to that. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, no. I mean, to sum up as well, Luke's team there. You've gone. You say it's Dullard, but I think you've gone Maverick there with the 4-4-2, and you haven't gone for any value up top really. And so I think that's quite bold. That's a quite bold move. That's looking much to last season, but it could be this season as well. So I think I like it as well. I like that team because it has that basic spine as well, and you can't argue with KDB. I don't think, and I think he's a good sort of third best player there. And I think the risks are low because you've gone big at the back, and it's meant that you can have a variety of what I call good players really. So the likes of Luca Dean and double Liverpool defence. Can't really argue with that. So let's put my team up now. So I've had a go at everyone else's team. I was trying to be nice to Luke there. So let's see what you've got to say about my team. So I'll just go through it. Now, I thought it was a really boring team until I put it up earlier, and you all told me it had gone Maverick. So I think it's boring.
What is boring about this?
Well, I'll go through it also for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. But I think it's full of price points to hop on and off players, and it's got some reliable starters with good games. So what my team has got is we've gone for Ryan and Button in goal, Robertson, Coleman and Taylor at the moment. That's Burnley's Taylor playing. Lucas Moura I've gone for, Trossard as well as my cheap punt in midfield. He's going to play Salah, Sterling, the spine I talked about. Chris Wood at Burnley, Vardy and Wilson up front. So I've gone for 3-4-3, and on my bench obviously Button, Dendoncker, Lundstrom, but that could change to a number of 4.0s. We might get a bit more information. So, for example, Gibson at Burnley, in which case I'd remove Taylor, could be an option, and Diop as well. So, okay, so looking at that, people say it's gone a bit maverick, but I don't think it's dull, and this is why I think it's dull. So, a Burnley defender and a West Ham defender gives me first 7 opponents of Southampton, Brighton, Watford, Norwich, Villa, and then Norwich and Villa again. So it's got a whole bunch of really easy fixtures for the first 7. It's just with one place there, and they're both cheap as well. So I think that's good to go for. Granville has already spoken about him. He's scored hat-tricks, not just hat-tricks. A player that should be nailed for the first 2 at least, with hat-tricks in him at 7.5. Looks like a really good move to me. And Fraser, I think, is one I may go for in that place. I may not, but I think for now, with Villa playing, I think Mora looks good.
Well, you're getting him for one game, aren't you? Because you're getting him for Villa at home, and then he's got City away.
I don't mind Spurs attackers against City away. Spurs were not shy when it came to taking on big sides, especially in the Champions League, and of course they beat City. Remember
4-3
as well. So I'm not too bothered about that. It's game week 3 where it could be an issue. Fraser is the one I want, but then he plays City, so that's when I might move him on to a Chelsea midfielder that I don't know who that is yet. So back to Trossard, as discussed, I think he could be a variety of midfielders. I do like the thought of these Villa lads as well. I just don't know what they're going to be like. So I'd like to see them for a game or 2. Once again, he can be moved on there. Woods is another one, a bit iffy. 9 pre-season goals. Great opening fixture against Southampton. It then goes a bit bad. Then game week 5, it gets better again. But, with Burnley as well, they can do well against the bigger sides. And I think out of those 6.5 options, I think he's really good. I'm hoping he'd get me off to a good start there. Vardy is there. He's a great price point because I can easily move up to the likes of Kane because he's only 9 million or so. So last half of the season as well, 10 goals in the last 18 games, a goal every other game type of player, and that's the case at home too. I like the odds, 50-50 chance of a goal. I like that. 10 big chances the last half of the season. That's actually on a par with Mane and Sterling towards the end of the season. So he's got the stats to back him up. I just think Vardy is a great option because I think with a lot of these players that I've got, I like them and I also dislike them. And I don't really think of them as players, I just think of them as price points. I can hop on and off almost anyone. Well, that's the theory.
Here we go.
Such a stats man, yeah.
But there is a but here. I've gone for Vardy over, say, for example, De Bruyne. So I could go for De Bruyne in midfield and then go for a cheaper striker. And that would mean that I could hop on, obviously De Bruyne is a good player, and I could hop on any other emerging, more expensive midfielder there, and so that counts me out really of getting Aguero and Kane. So that's the kind of, I can still do it, and it'll still do it in 2 moves, but I think that's what the teams that have KDB in have over my team at the moment. So I think that, if anything, is the maverick difference.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go first to attack me. Line up, pull your sleeves up, let's go.
Honestly,
I'm ready to.
Can I second?
I really, really actually like your team. I'll start off with that. I think he's actually really good. I love Wood.
That's boring.
One punt. I think he's great. Lucas Moura, game week 1 punt. But where's Joe? What have you done with him? Because those are game week 1 punt kind of players like that I've had in my team and stuff, and I've toyed with. I did not expect to see them in your team. And then Barkley just takes the biscuit. You've been conned into him as well.
No,
games in 10 years.
If I've gone for Trossard in that role, but I definitely want the most attacking Chelsea midfielder who costs 6 million. I definitely want that player. It could be Barkley, because Barkley's not the player from last season. Because last season he was being rotated with Kovacic, and now he could be rotated with.
Player. I don't get this whole Lampard come in and he's got faith in him, and suddenly he becomes.
But he's playing a different role for a start. He's playing in a more attacking role, and he's potentially on penalties, which he took in pre-season over Jorginho, who we thought might have been on penalties. I must stress, I haven't got Barkley in my team at the moment. But I've got my eye on him. He's watch listed.
Give me the old version, just give me the wrong data. Okay, cool.
That's the only change, by the way.
The only other thing is the rotating defenders I'll pick out. I've not seen that at all, and so I guess I can praise the fact there's a little bit of old school in there because I'd like everyone when they logs in, they look at that. And this season, I think they really tried to take that away from us almost. But you seem to have found one. But it's just different, I guess. And I didn't expect you to be different. So that's my main attacking point, Joe. I can't see how you think it's dull because the Twitter template is nothing like that, really. I mean, apart from Salah and Sterling and maybe Robertson, I think the rest of it is.
Yeah, I mean, even Vardy isn't in many teams.
Yeah.
Mm.
You haven't got a Leicester
9?
midfielder who nearly everyone seems to have.
It's
Well,
in
which
9.
one? I mean, in my Sky teams,
Yeah,
I have Maddison.
Exactly. You're more like Granville.
It is so. You know what? It has the same feel to mine.
It does.
You got
It's
quite a lot
old
of
school,
similar,
isn't it?
Because you've gone for 2 Liverpool and 1 City player, whereas some people like, I think Az has gone for 3. Is it no? Luke's gone for 3 and 3. 3 Liverpool and 3 City. So they've thrown all their money at those 2 teams. The other thing where I will criticise you over is Coleman's a nostalgia pick, and having Wood and Barkley both are.
Oh, well, I haven't got Barkley. I've got Trossard.
Okay.
I do,
well,
yeah.
even if you do decide to go back to Barkley, he's quite injury prone, and so is Wood.
Quite injury prone.
Yeah,
Well, I would go for Woods. I would go for Barkley if I thought he was nailed on, but I don't think he is at the moment. That's why I'm not going for him.
No, I don't think it's a good pick. And the other where I will commend you is having Ryan, Button,
You're
and
not going to let that go, are you, Granville? Ryan and Button to the grave.
and Taylor. This is exactly what I was saying before, that you can have Ryan and Button and not worry about your second keeper, and have Taylor. So you've got your Burnley. Taylor instead of Pope makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Taylor is like old Jonty, trying desperately to get out. The most boring player ever.
Well, I'll say it again. In that role, 'cause I'm not going to play Taylor and Diop together. I'm only going to play one, and it's going to be Southampton, Brighton, Watford, Norwich, Norwich, and Villa, all in the first 7. What a fantastic thing for a defender. I must say, I do fancy a Watford defender, though, so I'm going to be quizzing people about them.
And if you've got Pope, you're not going to rotate him, so Pope's going to be playing all those games. I haven't looked at Burnley fixtures, but I'm sure there's
they're awful. He's going to get loads of saves. He's going to save a couple of penalties from Aubameyang, and I'll be laughing.
Let's not do this again. We smashed the goalkeepers for like half an hour. Let's move on to the goalkeepers.
The thing I would think about my team, and this is what many other people might be thinking as well, is I'm trying to keep the punts to a minimum. So I think there'll be a bit of a downgrade there. So Lucas Moura and Woods and Trossard are all punty players, really. Salah, Sterling, Vardy, Wilson, I've got no problems with. Wood is a punt because his fixtures are so bad after game week 1, so I'm just going to hopefully ride that out there, and hopefully he'll have a good start as well. But him and Lucas Moura, and then Wilson has Man City in game week 3, so I'm thinking kind of far in advance, and I'm thinking I might have a bit of trouble down in game week 3 possibly. If Moura loses his place, Wilson's got a terrible fixture, and Wood's in the middle of bad fixtures as well. So I've got those 3 players. So one of those could go. This is why Moura could become Fraser. I might jettison that. Wood could become Troy Deeney even. Now that would be ultimate Dullard, old school Jonty. Because
let me make a prediction about Moura. You'll be keeping him, and Az and Luke will be getting him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have a cracking start, and at 7.5 is too good value to ignore.
No chance. No, not with City next.
City, he's going to score against City. If he can score goals in the Champions League against Ajax, and he can score against City.
I may still have him game week 1. To be honest, he still interests me. I think he's
think
he's a great pick. I'm not going to argue with more. I think he's a good pick.
I'm going to say.
I think Son's a good pick, but he's a lot more expensive. But I think
banned.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a lovely thought. The team that I thought was Dullard is in fact Maverick. I still think it's Dullard. You still think it's Maverick. Granville agrees with me that it's actually just old school, which is good. And I also like the idea that the actual Mavericks here, Az and Luke, will end up copying me, who's a Dullard. Does that all make sense? Quite confusing. Probably time to move on. Let's move on to differentials and clean sheets. Now, Az, we're doing this a bit differently. How are we doing this?
Yeah, so last season, you might remember quite a long section at the end of the Scoutcast where we would all pick a player, we'd all justify them, and they were just for 1 week. And same with the clean sheets as well. And just some of the feedback I was getting was that kind of wasn't really that helpful because people weren't looking for kind of 1 week punts. They're looking for sort of more longer term punts. So we're going to change up the way we do it. Instead, each week we're all going to pick one player who's going to last for 4 weeks. So a player who we think is going to do well over a 4 week period. So it gives you a chance to bring in a differential if you're chasing a mini league or looking to get ahead of the curve or something like that. And similar with clean sheets as well. We'll use the stats and we'll pick out who we think the teams are with the most likelihood for the clean sheets over the next 4. So Luke is going to kick us off with this differential for the next 4 weeks. And I think we've done quite well to avoid mentioning him so far, but he's a player that I think we've wanted to say a few times. But who have you gone for, Luke?
It's Callum Robinson. Yeah, I did mention him once because in my slightly more maverick version of my team, I can switch Kevin De Bruyne to Callum Robinson and then bring Aubameyang out front. So it's my Aubameyang team rather than my Robinson team, obviously. Yeah, this guy. What we're going to do is I'm basically going to try and sell this guy to you lot. And I know there's possibly negatives attached to him. He's a Sheffield United player. Let's not go into them. But I don't want to go into those. I'll see what you guys got to say in regards to that. But Callum Robinson, 0.6% owned. So, clearly one of the biggest differentials out there. I really like Sheffield United's fixtures to begin with, and I think they're quite overlooked. Like, I know they're a promoted team, so we're not really sure as to what they're going to provide us. But I think the defences they're playing, especially in the first 3. So away to Bournemouth, we all know that Bournemouth can be very iffy at the back. I know they kept a few clean sheets last season, but it was usually feast or famine with them. They then play Palace at home, who I think, as you've got them down, as get rock bottom 20th this season. I can't see.
18th.
Okay.
18th.
They haven't even got any fit defenders, it appears. And then the home to Leicester, where I think that's still a pretty good game for them because they've obviously just lost Maguire, and how are they going to cope? And then Rodgers is a pretty offensive manager. So in the first 3 fixtures, I think are good. Chelsea away, obviously not so much, but we still don't know with Chelsea. That's the other factor. So we don't know what Chelsea we're going to get, really. So I think the fixtures are good. And as a result of that, the other main benefit is obviously this guy's been playing up front in pre-season, and it appears that he's likely to start the line.
And smashing them in.
Yeah, 5.5 million midfielder playing up front in the front 2. So I think he got 12 goals in 27 games last season. I know that's championship, but it's roughly a goal every other game, so not to be sniffed at. Pre-season, 4 goals and 1 assist. In pre-season, I think that's only in about 3 games because he actually obviously got signed by them. So in the games he's played, he's returned in every single one. But it's more about the reviews that Sheffield United fans are giving him. I was looking through the internet. I know obviously the fans are going to be up on their new signings, but rave reviews this guy's getting all over the place. So he's a serious temptation for me. The only real worry that I have is the price bracket. But again, I don't want to go into the negatives on that really. So I'll hand over to you guys. What do you think? Do you think he's a good punt for 4 weeks, or do you think I'm just mad?
The 2 negatives are the price point, but we've talked about McGinn, and I love Ceballos when he's fit. So to me, there are a few players you could move him over to. I think the biggest drawback is I thought he was perfect, like literally the perfect cheap midfielder until they signed Bernie. Yeah, and then that just suddenly cast doubt about whether he's going to play up front or not, because they've got quite a lot of strikers, haven't they? If you look at the FPL team, so we hope that he will still play up front, but there's a chance that he might not. And then if he doesn't, he's just a Sheffield United midfielder that you're starting each week. That's my concern. But if he plays up front, then I don't think it matters what team they play for. If you've got a midfielder playing up front, then it's going to be gold. But if he's on the wing, then he's much less exciting.
Yeah, no, I don't like him either. And that's because, as Az pointed out, it's a choice you've got there. So you've got Musette, you've got Sharp, McGoldrick, McBurney. They're all the forwards there. So you've got 4 forwards going for it. And then you've got this poor chap who's got to compete with them as well. Plus, it's that price point. It's very difficult. You can more or less run away from him, but it's quite difficult and quite tricky as well. And also, I really don't like Sheffield United's fixtures that much either. I don't think I think they're a wait and see as well. So yeah, I think early on you never know with against Bournemouth and then Villa. So Villa's like an old school Championship clash for them. A clash for them. Sorry, Crystal Palace rather. And then they got Leicester and Chelsea. It's Leicester and Chelsea. They're the biggies. And so I think over the first 4, there's 2 potential easy-ish matches, but we don't know. And there's 2 that are just not going to happen for them. And so I just don't like the fixtures. This is why I prefer, say, a Brighton midfielder or even a Villa midfielder, because at least they've got the fixtures to back them up. I just don't think Sheffield United do. And as has pointed out, it's the choice. There's so many of them as well, and some we've heard of. I mean, McBurney as well. I mean, I remember when he was a 4.5 striker that you never wanted to see near your team at Swansea, and now he's an even more expensive striker I don't particularly want to see in my team. But he could get the nod over this guy, so that proves him. So yeah, I'm not keen. Granville, what do you reckon?
Of Robinson. Of Robinson, I agree with you. I think there's two. I don't like the fixtures at all. The fourth one against Chelsea, they're not going to do much in that game. I wouldn't have thought. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Am I still there?
Yeah, still here.
I lost you for a second.
I was transfixed. That's all.
Okay. Your camera's frozen.
My camera's frozen, but people can still hear me. So that's fine.
It has. I can't see you.
No, that's fine. You can still hear them.
Yeah, I think it's. The thing is, we're going for differentials, and that's why it is a differential. I think I'm all right with him. Can we go on to the next? Can we go on to the next one?
Okay. Well, anyway, that's it. So that's what we're going to do Well, we don't know how this will work out, but we think it'll work out that one of us picks out a differential, and we'll either go well done or rubbish it. But have we put you off here, Luke?
I think I'll abstain on it.
Okay, you abstain. So we've got two people who hate it and an abstention. What have we put you off?
I mean, I haven't got him in my team, so at the end of the day, but he is still strongly considered. I may still have him. For the reasons Az has really said at the end of the day, it's the price point more than anything, and I think it would therefore I'd almost be booking two transfers if it fails. But of course, it may not fail, and that's why it's a punt, right?
And then you've got a 5.5 midfielder playing up front.
Yeah, and then exactly, people are happy to put Perez in the team. I know it's Leicester are obviously a different kettle of fish, but people are happy to put a 6.5 midfielder who's playing up front, and this saves you a whole other million on top of that.
Because of that price, you probably only need an assist every other game.
Yeah, I mean,
to justify it.
I wouldn't in the first three games. Let's say he plays up front in all of them, just for argument's sake. I think he would probably get at least one attacking turn in those 3 games.
Yeah.
I think, therefore, it's what it allows you to do. As I said, the Aubameyang team. It allows me, for example, to get Aubameyang. It's not just all about this guy. So. I still like him as a punt, but obviously, I'm obviously not completely convinced, and it's mainly for the issue of what it does to your team long term if it fails. So, we'll see.
And also whether he play, whether he's
going to play. I'm confident on that. Sharp's going to start with him up front, and then Sharp will get subbed off because he's a bit older, and one of the new boys will come in.
McGoldrick will play it, I think.
Okay, so it looks like one for the Mavericks out there, possibly, but not for a couple of us. But maybe you never know. I don't rule him out, but definitely do it first.
We'll see what he gets in 4 weeks. We'll tally up the points and see.
I think it's a strong start. Right, should we move on to clean sheets?
Yes.
Then? So I think David's going to normally do this, right? But Joe's going to step in this week. So who's best for clean sheets over the first 4 game weeks, Joe?
Yeah, so in the same vein that we're looking at differentials over a 4-week period, and I actually don't think those fixtures are too good for that Sheffield United lad. But so this looks at who's going to get clean sheets. So you can look at this from an attacking point of view as well. But in terms of defence, so what I've done is I've had a look at this section, the season ticker on the Fantasy Football Scout, and you've got a button you can press called Defence. And you can alter it to read who's got good and bad fixtures. So in one, the best fixtures is Everton. It's a sea of blue for the first 4. Watford, surprisingly, in second. Could a cheap Watford defender be a smart move? I think so. So my team could go even more old school with a Watford, Kiko Firmino perhaps. Watford old school. Yeah. And Liverpool in at 3. So Liverpool, excellent there. So those are doubling up on the Liverpool defence. Could be the smart move. Just Arsenal really could be the problem. They've got Norwich, Southampton, Arsenal, Burnley. And then in number 4 is Crystal Palace. Just Manchester United, I think, could be a problem. Patrick Van Aanholt, anyone, I've said. So that really would be going Maverick, but I think he could be a good pick there. So Crystal Palace got Everton, Sheffield United, Manchester United, and then Aston Villa. I think that's a really good bunch of fixtures for Palace. If they can sort themselves out defensively, if Cahill can roll back the years as their new centre-back, and they've got Sacco as well, who's coming back or just back from injury. Guita as well is an excellent goalkeeper. Could be some clean sheets in there. Maybe may have talked myself into getting a Palace defender as well. What does anyone think of those fixtures?
That can't be sensible when you're talking yourself into a Palace defender.
I know.
Jeez.
Definitely less.
After everything you said, this Scoutcast about Palace, but I tend to agree. Actually, I think I'm looking at those fixtures, and actually Palace were pretty good last season away from home.
Yeah.
If you remember, it was the home games where they needed to sort themselves out.
Now, yeah,
I put money they concede in all 4 of them games.
They could, they may not. But I just think on paper, they've got some good bunch of fixtures. And I do, if I was maverickly minded, Patrick Van Aanholt is a player I would definitely look at. I'm not keen on their strikers, obviously, but Milivojevic on penalties as well, I think is a good shout. So Granville's got him in his side there. I just wonder.
I'm convinced Patrick Van Aanholt's going to be their top goal scorer this season because they've got no one else.
Yeah, I mean, with 6 goals.
Yeah.
But to be honest,
his expected goals data from last season was actually really good, and he underperformed on it. And obviously, he's got a history of scoring goals. So yeah, I mean, I think if I was going to pick anyone for goals this season outside of your obvious Man City and Liverpool players, it's going to be Patrick Van Aanholt again. He just seems to have a knack for it. So
I think from now until
not Connor Wickham then.
Definitely not.
But I think if from now until Friday we can convince at least one person to get Patrick Van Aanholt in their team, I think I consider this section of the Scoutcast a success. But for now, thanks for joining us, everyone. Just before we go, a reminder to watch out for or listen out for further podcasts and videos this week and throughout the season. Plus, go to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Full of great information for the coming season, particularly the pre-season page. Click on the tab at the top. Absolutely invaluable, especially minutes people have played. Especially good if you're a Scout member as well. Full details on the site. Lots and lots of stats there. And well, some of us like some stats now and again. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.